WCW, you go there as the Black Top Bully. Now,
Yeah.
there's a very, well, I'm not sure how famous a story it is, but there's a very famous match that involves you and Dustin Rhodes. You know what it is. You've got to tell us the entire story of the concept of who came up with a match on a truck and just how much of a pain it was to set up.
Okay. Well, what was funny was Ric Flair was the booker then at the time. And Rick came up to me and says, Barry, I want you to be a bully somehow, a trucker, I just want you to be a mean truck driver. Come up with a good name for yourself. And I says, okay, well, this is going to take a few days and a few beers to create this thing. So I called up Arn and I called up Bobby Eaton. I said, we need to go in Bobby's garage and we need to talk. I got to come up with a name for myself. So we probably had about, 15 beers apiece. We're sitting there laughing, kids running through, Bobby had a TV out there and a couch. And that was kind of our, to get out of the wrestling mode, we'd enjoy ourselves over at Bobby Eaton's house. So I told Arn, I said, Arn, you come up with anything yet? And he drinks this beer, and Arn had these glasses on, and whenever his glasses came down by his nose and he'd look at you like this, you knew something was serious. And he looks at me just right out of the blue, looks at me and he goes, you're the Black Top Bully. And I looked at him and I said, Arn, that's the greatest name of all time. So I called up Rick, hammered that night. I said, Rick, I'm the Black Top Bully. He says, I love it. You're the Black Top Bully. So anyways, I came up with the shirt, and the pants and all that stuff. And then they had me in jail, getting out of jail. And I worked a deal where I was in the crowd and all this stuff. Well, after it started getting over pretty good. So then Mike Graham says, at the pay-per-view, he says, Eric, he says, we got to have a match on a truck, on a semi-truck with Dustin and the Black Top Bully. He said, this is going to be great. This is going to get both of them over big time. It's going to be huge. And it was an uncensored match. So anything goes. So they had barbed wire and everything in this truck. And I mean, it was a huge operation. They had helicopters, they had pickup trucks. And
yeah, did you ever find out how much that match cost to put on? Did anyone ever tell you?
I never found out, but it had to be big time money.
Yeah, because they had a helicopter filming it from the air as well. That was a huge operation.
Yeah, and then they had cops shutting down the road because we went like 50 miles around Atlanta. I mean, it was a big time deal. So we were bleeding from head to toe from getting hit with shovels and this and that and everything. So then we got done with the match after about an hour of wrestling this thing, and it was brutal because the hay, and the horse shit, and they had it was a real deal. So we get out, we're all done, we're in a field, and I looked at Dustin, I said, Dustin, thinking, what a hell of a match, thanks. And so I go home to Charlotte and he goes home. The next morning I get a phone call from Eric, and Eric says, hey Barry, he says, hell of a match you had last night. And I said, well, thank you. And he says, I got some good news and some bad news. I said, well, what is it? He says, you want the good news or the bad? I said, what's the good news? He goes, it was a hell of a match. Everybody loved it. I said, what's the bad news? He says, you're fired. I said, I'm fired? What the hell? I have a good match that I'm fired? He says, yeah, you can't have blood on TV. I said, it's an uncensored match. I said, we got barbed wire in there. We got shovels. We're getting hit. I said, it's the real deal. He goes, yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't have blood in the match. I said, that's bullshit. And Eric says, just do me a favor. He says, take this slightly and be fired. He says, I'm firing Dustin. I'm firing Mike Grimm too. I said, you got to be kidding me. So anyways, I thought, well, what do I do? I'm fired. He says, I'll bring you back. Just lay low a little bit. I promise you I'll bring you back. So it ended up being where Eric was good to his word. He did bring me back and gave me a guaranteed contract. And I worked about once every 2 months or something. I mean, it was the greatest wrestling gig I've ever had in my life. I still wish I was on that gig because I never wrestled.
Hey,
but anyway, I got to hand it to Eric. He was good for his word, and but yeah, the Black Top Bully, I loved that gimmick. I think it could have went places, but I don't think they wanted it to go places either.
was going to say it went 50 miles around Atlanta at least, so it did go places at least, if nothing
It
else.
did go places, but I think I could have been a top guy down there as the Blacktop Bully, you know.
And then your very briefly your Stuart Payne, which is a playoff of Payne Stewart, who was a golfer who famously did he die in a plane crash?
Payne Darsow, yeah, Payne Stewart died in a plane crash, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was a golfer because I played golf all the time, and it Terry Taylor came up with the gimmick for me, and so I was wrestling as a golfer, and I'd wrap the putter around people's necks.
Did you actually take your own clubs, to down to Atlanta or wherever they're filming, so at least you could get some games in as
Yeah,
well?
I had my own clubs in there. I played golf all the time then. Yeah, that's when I should have played was Zabisco, but we never had time to do it.
Did you ever think of, like, with Larry, maybe getting on some of these, like, was it not Pro-Am, but like these celebrity golf tournaments, or what was he doing? Was he on like the seniors tour at one point?
I don't know what he was on, but I was in a lot of Pro-Am tournaments. Um, with the golf pro that I was with, Dick Johnson was his name. We were in Pro-Ams every week for probably a year, and had a great time. I loved to play golf, but now I just hurt so bad it's hard to play, but I still love it.